Thank you, Esteban. Hello there, everyone. Olá, olá todo mundo. Olá, ustedes, ¿cómo están? Yo soy JP y creo que me escuchan, ¿no? Que estoy acá. I'm reading the chat and I can see some people saying that it's breaking to them. Some people say that they can't hear Esteban, but in general, I think everybody can hear us. And I hope the interpretation, the translation is working. Está a funcionar a tradução, interpretação está funcionando. We want to do this as inclusive as we can, considering that this is a regional event for people all around Latin America and the world. So we speak many languages. It's very hard, very complicated, but throughout all of the session, the 2 days, we will have translation into Spanish or Portuguese, or we will be having sessions that are in Spanish and or in Portuguese. So I hope it works. We have almost 200 people live with us here. Feel free to introduce yourself. Feel free to use the chat. It's hard to follow the chat because there's so many people, nice friends sharing, but feel free to use your words and be here with us and bring your insights, your view. So let me start by introducing myself. Everybody knows me by JP. My Portuguese name is João Paulo. And my challenge for you is that by the end of tomorrow, everybody can say João, as we say in Portuguese. People call me JP because it's easier. I'm from Brazil. I live in São Paulo, in the city of São Paulo. I am the Latin America and Caribbean director for Giving Tuesday, a movement that we also know in Spanish as Un Día para Dar and in Portuguese as Dia de Doar. And I've been part of the movement for so long now. I once was the Brazilian leader for Giving Tuesday, for Dia de Doar. And eventually I joined the global movement as a member of the team. It's such a joy to be here with you in this space. We have here Giving Tuesday leaders. I've seen a few of them saying hi in the chat, like Diana. We have partners, we have friends, old and new friends across the region and beyond. And I thank you all for being here with me, for bringing your ideas your commitments to building a more generous region. And this is why we are here together. Generosity without borders. Generosidad sin fronteras. Generosidade sem fronteiras. As I mentioned before joining Giving Tuesday, I was the Brazilian leader for our own local movement, Dia de Doar. I was a volunteer in the movement, and as a volunteer, I worked to spread generosity all around the country, to have generosity cherished as a value by all the Brazilians. And I was very happy leading Dia de Doar in Brazil as well. For those of you who are here and are new to Giving Tuesday, let me just take a minute to explain who we are and why our mission is to transform our world through radical generosity. Generosidad radical. Generosidade radical. Giving Tuesday was created back in 2012 as a simple idea, a day that encourages people to do good. Since then, it has grown into a year-round global movement that inspires hundreds of millions of people to give, to collaborate, and to celebrate generosity. As a movement, rather than a hierarchical organization, we do this work through a network of leaders, a network of volunteers, a network of friends all around the world. All of them will be here over the coming days, and we encourage you to connect and to explore what you can do in your country, in your community to promote generosity. If there is no leader in your country, that is not an obstacle for us. We at the LAC team, Latin American Caribbean team, are here to support and to advise. While Giving Tuesday is not new, Giving Tuesday has been around for 13 years now as a movement. In many countries, it might be recent, like in Guatemala, with Un Dia para Dar, Guatemala or Panama. In other countries like Brazil, Argentina, Mexico, Colombia, La República Dominicana, we've been around for a while now. Even though the movement has been around for a few years, Generosity Without Borders is new. This is our first region-wide event, and the borders we refer here are both geographic and figurative. This event is completely different from any other event that you have seen, not because of its structure. Well, let's face it, this structure is relatively traditional, but because of its content. For the first time, por la primera vez, Latin America and in Latin America and the Caribbean, we are gathered together with generosity as the starting point for conversations that are important to the region. Generosity unites us. La generosidad nos une. Generosity is more than a feel-good sentiment. It's a force that can cross boundaries of geography, of sector, of culture, and help us imagine new ways of supporting our communities, resourcing change, and strengthening our civil society and even our democracies. And we all long for stronger democracies in all of our countries. Generosity Without Border focus on Latin America and Caribbean. LAC, this small acronym that we say LAC, Latin America and the Caribbean. LAC is a vast and diverse region, and yet we knew it was important to take a regional approach, build a stronger regional voice for LAC in the global philanthropy ecosystem. This comes with challenges. Hosting this forum in 3 languages is not easy. Não é fácil, não é fácil. Event in 3 languages. The platform itself speaks English, and we need to translate it. All of us speak 1, 2, 3 languages, but how do we bring everybody together and host an inclusive event in 3 languages? It's a challenge, and we're facing it. But it's a vital step to ensure more voices are heard. This event and hosting it in 3 languages reflects our commitment to take the conversation about generosity to a deeper and broader level. Our region cannot be defined by the 3 languages we're speaking here. We know that. And hopefully in the future, we will be able to speak yet more languages from all around Latin America and the Caribbean. Now, in Latin America, in the Caribbean, we don't usually come together very often. Traveling is expensive. Language, as I've mentioned, is a barrier to us. And we lack regional organizations promoting philanthropy and promoting an ecosystem that foster doing good. As Giving Tuesday, Latin America and the Caribbean, we are not, or as Latin Americans and Caribbeans, we are not rich as our friends from the North, nor are we recipients of large amounts of aid as our friends from other continents in the South. So we are usually left with ourselves and the allies we've built in the way. We have to come together and build our own path and our own narrative. And this is what we are doing today and tomorrow. Latin American and Caribbeans coming together to reflect upon how generosity is embedded within our communities and how we can leverage it for social impact, to grow and develop our own communities, our own region. As you will see, this event has no sponsors. who would give money for people to talk about generosity, right? The big thing is philanthropy for investment right now. But nah, I'm kidding. We didn't even go after funding. And yes, we are always open for sponsorships for the next edition. We had our budget and we wanted to prioritize hosting this event in the best way we could do for you. We decided to invest our budget in bringing people together from all around the region. And here we are with you and other 1,300 people from over 40 countries, most of them in Latin America and the Caribbean. Yes, we have people coming from Afghanistan, from Madagascar, from India, but we have people coming from Barbados, from Antigua, from Guyana, from Brazil, from Uruguay, from Puerto Rico, most of the countries and territories in Latin America and the Caribbean. And I urge you, I ask you, I invite you, introduce yourself, and let's show our diversity in the chat. Let's know who we are and let's exchange from now until the end of the event tomorrow. We are keeping the chat room open in all of the sessions because we want you to express yourself and to share about you and learn about others as well. We have 50 speakers, 50 ponentes, 50 palestrantes, coming from 19 different countries. Almost all of them are from Latin America and the Caribbean. 39 out of the 50 are from Latin America and the Caribbean. That's amazing. It's an event that was built by us, to us, with partners, most of them coming from the region as well, and helped by our friends that come from other regions and our friends and allies that are together with Giving Tuesday in Latin America and the Caribbean. Over the next 2 days, we will be exploring the power of generosity from different angles, starting today with why generosity. Why generosity matters, how it relates to philanthropy and civil society, and the opportunity we have to forge new paths. Tomorrow, we'll move into the how. Como? How generosity comes alive in practice through communications, fundraising, volunteering, voluntariado, leadership, and data. This is all possible thanks to the 50 speakers who have generously contributed to an amazing program, enabling us to offer world-class sessions free of charge for all of you. And all our speakers are volunteers as well. And we need to be thankful to all of our 39 dissemination partners who have helped us build and promote this event. And I won't mention all of the 39 partners that we have because it is a big list, but I want to share very briefly my screen with all of you. Let me have it ready here to share and introduce them all to all because the list is amazing and we are very thankful to all of them for supporting us on sharing this event and making it happen. So just a second as I can make things right here and sharing my screen. It is taking a while because my computer is slow, despacio, devagar, but I hope it will soon. Oops, it's not sharing here. Let me stop. Oh, it is now. Yes, I think you can all see the list of 39 partners, aliados de difusión, parceiros that we have. It is a big list, and I'm thankful to all of you for being here with us. And before going forward, let me say thank you also to our leaders in Latin America and the Caribbean. To our Giving Tuesday, let me see if I can go back the screen here. Yes, oops, I went forward. Yes, I want to celebrate and cherish those volunteers who have been leading Giving Tuesday in Latin America and the Caribbean. And they are not all here. We are missing a few, but most of them are. So we have Pablo from the Dominican Republic. We have Raul, Xavi, and Vale from Mexico. We have Inés and Claudia from Guatemala, Eli from Costa Rica, Jenny from Panama, and Carol supporting as well in Panama, Danielle from Ecuador, Maria, Peru, Sergio, and all of the Bolivian team, Christy from Eastern Caribbean, St. Lucia, Marcy from St. Croix, Malu from Barbados. You're going to meet Malu in a while. René from Puerto Rico and all of the team in Puerto Rico. Joana from Venezuela. Diana from Colombia and Teresa as well. Felipe and Bruna from Brazil. Julieta from Uruguay and Soledad and all of the team of Pura Vida and Uruguay as well. And now we finally go to the best part of the opening session. We go to our generosity report session. And I'm going to introduce you to Woodrow and Inés. So before I do that, let me stop sharing my screen and going back to my speech so I can have it ready. And the less I improvise, the better for all of us. Sin muchas improvisaciones. Well, our first session is titled, has as title Generosity Reports. For most of you, this will be the first time you actually are at a generosity conference rather than a nonprofit, a fundraising, a philanthropy conference that are more common. I myself have never, last year we hosted a generosity event in Panama in person for 120 people. But this is the first time that ourselves as Giving Tuesday in Latin America and Caribbean are organizing, and this is the first regional major event on generosity that I have ever seen. So this session, this opening session, is where we set the stage and we answer key questions. Why generosity matters as a powerful driver of social change. What it means to grow generosity in our societies. What is our baseline now? How do we give today? How generous are we? And what are the opportunities to grow giving and grow generosity in our communities? This session is designed to answer these questions through the lens of data and research, so showcasing Giving Tuesday's philosophy of evidence-based work and creating a shared understanding of key themes as we move through the rest of the forum. As with all of the sessions, the value add is the focus on Latin America and the Caribbean, insights and issues that are relevant at national and regional level, not necessarily global narratives or global data. For this session, we are joined by two good friends. We will start hearing from Woodrow Rosenbaum. Woodrow is a good old partner within the Giving Tuesday movement, who was originally a Canadian leader for Giving Tuesday and is now the Chief Data Officer for the movement and has been leading our Giving Tuesday Data Commons, bringing together a coalition of more than 2,000 collaborators and data teams around the world. Their work, the work that has been led by Giving Tuesday Data Commons, is instrumental in shaping the movement. It has led groundbreaking research and analysis of giving behaviors, which help us to understand the drivers and the impacts of generosity and to design strategies that inspire more giving of all types. After we hear from Woodrow, I will share with you our work, our report that we released last year, and I will invite our leader from Guatemala, Inés, to comment on what she heard and her thoughts and insights about generosity in the region. But before I introduce Inés, let me invite Woodrow to the stand. I know he is around. I'm gonna ask him to open up his video, his camera, so I can spotlight him.
Hi, JP. I need somebody
I
to do that because I've been disabled.
Yes, I can do that. Let me find you here. Woodrow and PD. Yes, I think you can do it now.
There we go.
Perfect.
There I
Thank
am.
you.
Good to
Hey,
see you,
hello there,
JP.
Woodrow.
It's good to be seen by you, JP.
Yeah, it was my fault. I did that.
All
And
good.
let me.
I'm very happy to be here. Thank you.
Perfect. Now everybody can see you by my side, but in a few minutes, in a few seconds, I actually leave you highlighted here, and I will disappear. And I know you have a deck to share, right? Uma
I have a few
apresentação.
slides. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, do you want to share it yourself? Can you do it?
I'm ready to share.
Perfect. So, Esteban, Woodrow, obrigado, gracias. Thank you for being here with us, helping us open our event, our major event for the region. The floor is all yours. I will be back as soon as you finish.
Thanks, JP. It really is a pleasure to be able to kick off this really exciting event. I feel quite a privilege to be doing so. As JP said, I am the Chief Data Officer for GivingTuesday. I run the data GivingTuesday Data Commons, our team, and our very broad collaboration around the world that is looking at the trends in individual generosity. We have more than 2,000 partners in our working groups who look at various dimensions of giving, trying to understand what are those trends and what drives those trends, what motivates people to give, what are the behaviors and how do they intersect and interact. This started, though, simply as an effort to understand what is Giving Tuesday the day? How is that intervention impacting donation trends? And what we found was, this is not going to be surprising to most, that the data infrastructure in the nonprofit sector and in the philanthropic sector is not great. It was not easy to see what was happening on this day. And so we needed to create a collaborative effort of many different partners and design some infrastructure to collect and analyze data in order to answer that question about ourselves. One of the outcomes of that, though, was we ended up with both data and methodologies and technology that had not previously existed for observing people's giving behavior. And as that grew, the opportunity and our mandate also expanded. So now we certainly do many different things that are intended to help us understand the impact of our work. How do Giving Tuesday programs and the Giving Tuesday movement make change? We want to understand that so that we can deploy best practices and improve our outcomes. But beyond that, we now have an opportunity to look beyond just what do our programs and what do our interventions and how does this movement affect the world, and see much more broadly the full spectrum of generosity behavior and what that means every day of the year. What other things impact people's desire and ability to give? And we are getting a much more holistic look at that giving environment, at the ecosystem of generosity, trying to understand how we can tap into that. And more importantly, and increasingly, we're getting an understanding that it's not so much about getting people to be more giving or give in one way rather than another, but much more it's about creating the environment, the enabling environment for people's generosity. Because what we have seen time and time again is that people are very generous everywhere in the world and they want to do good. And having that opportunity is really what's key. Now, there's a lot of nuance in that, of course. We just recently released our State of Generosity report. You can see the URL there, where we get into some of the current trends coming out of 2024 and into 2025 that we think are really important to understand if we're going to enable generosity in all of its forms around the world. A couple of caveats about some of the stuff I'm going to share. We have a lot more data about the US and the US environment than we do in other places. And we are working with our hubs to build out more measurement data capacity. And you'll hear more about that everywhere else in the world. Also, we do have and continue to collect on an annualized basis data in Latin America and the Caribbean. And if you are one of the dozens of people who don't live in Brazil or Mexico, you may be thinking, what about my country? And just know that we are also thinking that too. We are doing regular data collection in Brazil and Mexico, and have every intention of expanding that as we are looking to expand around the world. However, let me just give you some highlights of what we are seeing in this annualized review. First, what is not different? What is not different is that everywhere around the world, people do lots of different things. Giving is both very diverse and very prolific. Most giving is not monetary in most places. And most giving doesn't involve a nonprofit in most places. Again, there's lots of variation from place to place. Some places do tend more towards what we would call formalized giving through nonprofits. Other places lean more toward giving to individuals. Some places giving things is much more common than or somewhat more common than volunteering time. So we see some variation, but what's really important is that most people are taking more than one type of action. And that is a feature, not a bug. There's sometimes this apprehension about people's giving behavior, that we think of it as a competitive thing. And one of the things that has emerged in our research everywhere we've looked around the world is that is just simply not the case. Rather than being competitive, generosity and giving behaviors are generative. The best indicator that someone's going to take some action for good is that they took some other action for good. And that includes giving money to nonprofits. So we shouldn't be thinking about this in terms of a desire to kind of change people's behavior from giving to individuals or giving to unregistered but sort of informal organizations to something else, but rather recognize that really this is about meeting people where they are, recognizing their inherent generosity and desire to give back, and giving them avenues to express that generosity. Because it is not a competitive situation. We don't see that. What we see is that when people's generosity is lifted by various things, can be crisis, can be a Giving Tuesday campaign, can be lots of things. What happens is we see all these behaviors and all of these channels of giving move in concert. So this is good news, but it also means that if we're thinking about this from a nonprofit resilience perspective, it does mean that in situations, and this is certainly very, very true, very profoundly noticeable in the US, if we're not able to effectively engage with people in a genuine way at a grassroots level, our organizations are not going to be resilient. But the answer isn't change those people. It really needs to be about change our practices. So a couple of notes then on what we have seen in Mexico and Brazil, 2024 versus 2023. In Mexico, what we saw was that monetary giving was relatively stable and most common, interestingly, among Gen Z, where we had the majority of Gen Z respondents giving to at least 3 recipient types. So giving to individuals, giving to nonprofit organizations, and giving to other unincorporated informal giving organizations. The monetary giving to those informal groups, so mutual aid networks, this sort of thing, grew 19%, largely driven by a really substantial increase among Gen Z. This is obviously this raises questions about what is driving these changes, something that we really would like to dig into. I would caution against any assumptions about what drives these kinds of changes. One of the things that we continue to see is that because this environment is so complex and there's so many factors, now that we're measuring people's giving behavior in the US on a weekly basis, what we see is that any assumptions about the drivers of this being a particular economic situation, for example, often don't stand up. So correlation is not causation, and it really is important to dig deeper to understand what is driving those shifts, something that is absolutely part of our agenda. In Brazil, what we saw was monetary giving trending downward year over year. We saw this overall, and we saw this to registered charities and to informal groups. And interestingly, contrasting with Mexico, we saw Gen Z givers giving less money. We also saw that a substantial decrease in the number of people who were giving across all recipient types. What we're finding is that again, because what we see is any impact, either positive or negative, tends to move all those behaviors. We are seeing overall weakening in volunteer behavior as well. Now, that said, on an annualized basis, it isn't always quite that simple. And sometimes we see one of these areas sort of compensating for the other. At a macro level, when we looked at global indices of giving against employment and income rates, for example, we did see a little bit of push and pull between volunteering when people had more time and were less employed, and giving money when they had more money to give. It really does seem like a lot of this has to do with how much opportunity people have to give. But generally speaking, what we see is that these behaviors tend to move in concert. In Brazil, we saw that 49% of givers gave all three ways, which again is really important to understand. People are interested in supporting many different causes in many different ways, and we should be seeing this as opportunity rather than threat as a nonprofit sector. Another thing that is encouraging is that we see that trust in nonprofits has been pretty strong and relatively robust. Now, there are a couple of caveats here. While it's true that overall institutional trust is waning in many, perhaps most places, generally speaking, we do see that trust in nonprofits tends to be a little bit more resilient to that erosion than other institutions. That still could be a problem. And I think that the issue of trust does play out differently in different places. To some degree, and for some of the population, that lack of trust is more of an excuse for non-givers than it is the reason for non-giving. And certainly if you ask people, there's a correlation there. But I don't think we need to worry about it quite as much as one might think. Also, you will note, I'm sure some of you familiar with these data, our numbers look different from some other reports on trust in nonprofits. The answer to why is perhaps, partly it's going to be unsatisfactory. We ask a slightly different question, and so we get a slightly different result. And so we're not necessarily comparing apples to apples, looking at these different instruments. But we also use a different measurement methodology. Key to that is we don't let respondents give us a neutral response, which is unusual for most of the surveys that have looked at this. And when you take that approach, what you end up with is a slightly more positive and a more robust trust measure. So I don't think we have to worry about trust too much. And regardless, the way that you build trust is by making a genuine human connection with people about the good that they want to do. And ultimately, that's what we need to do if we're going to engage communities effectively. Some interesting findings that's come out of our research around ideological and political views and generosity. What we see is that by and large, people are willing to give across ideological boundaries, and that we don't see substantial difference in giving across kind of the political spectrum. You'll see in our recent report, there are some emerging differences there, but nothing really substantial. And it is important, though, that we do see that people who give have less polarized views and are more trusting of people in their community, and vice versa. And we think that there is, in fact, a dialogue between these things. People giving tends to drive them to have a less extreme or polarized view, builds trust and belonging. And people who have a sense of trust and belonging and have less polarized views are more likely to respond with generosity. I think this is an important chart because when we think about giving, often we're thinking about high net worth donors, or even just individual giving or government grants. And it's really important to understand that most giving is people sending money home to their communities. Remittances are the absolutely by far the biggest component of the way that people support communities with their money, much bigger than individual giving to U.S. nonprofits and religious congregations and donor advised funds and government grants. This is just people taking care of their communities. And it would be easy to dismiss this as kind of, well, that's just family. That's just taking care of your family. We see in remittance behaviors, what we see in so many other giving behaviors is that it goes beyond kind of a taking care of myself component. Remittances are sent to communities. They're shared with families. And, anecdotally, it's very interesting to talk to people who are sending money on a regular basis to people somewhat tangentially connected to their families and communities who they've never met, and they don't know that they are contributing to these communities. And the value of this transaction is much more substantial, has a much more bigger economic impact on those communities than many of these other kind of traditional and flows of capital. So what don't we know? Well, so many things. First of all, the list of questions is infinite. And every time we answer one, we spawn 10 more. And that's part of the joy and frustration of research. In Latin America and the Caribbean, we have really substantial ambitions for growing out our measurement capability and supporting the capacity building of our partners and growing those partnerships in order to do so. We're interested in how money flows across borders, in and out of the region. We want better measures of informal giving, or for that matter, of formal giving. We want to see how digital giving behaviors are evolving and emerging and what the opportunities are there for reaching people more broadly on a grassroots level. And you'll hear from JP about the online giving radar project that will help to kick off some new instruments and capacity for us to begin digging deeper into all of these areas. People in Latin America and Caribbean, like people around the world, are generous, and their generosity matters. Some would argue, I think, maybe more than ever now, enabling that individual generosity, providing pathways for it, and building resilient civil society is going to be critical to having healthy communities. That absolutely means giving money to nonprofits, and it also means all of the myriad other ways that people bring themselves to make positive change in their community. And I'm sure over the next day, we will hear a lot more about the baselines and opportunities to do so. JP?
Thank you, Woodrow. Thank you for this insightful, inspiring presentation. I have invited Inés to be here with us as well. Let me add her as highlight her. Woodrow, I'll ask you to stay with us for 10 more minutes before I close the session. We might have questions to you. Before I introduce Inés and have her, and we hear her reflections, her thoughts on generosity in Latin American and Caribbean data, I want to share with all of you the report that the Latin American Caribbean GivingTuesday Hub published last year. So let me share with you my screen one more time, just for one image. So you will be able, something that I have forgotten to say, there is here in this session, in all of the sessions actually, there is a button called recursos, resources. It should be appearing to you. So let me know if you have access to it. In recursos, resources, you can download the materials that we make available to you throughout the sessions, and you can also access the links that we make available. Last year in November, we published the first edition of our own report called Generosity in Latin America and the Caribbean, our LAC Generosity Report. This document brings together existing data on generosity and philanthropy in the region. It helps us understand how generous we are, the status of our philanthropic sector, and how we compare to other regions of the world. It also helps us to know the existing data gaps. For example, we still don't know how many nonprofits each country has or how much people give to causes in every country. And as Woodrow mentioned, we don't know, and we are working to understand how people give online. And soon, later in the year, we will be publishing our first online giving radar report. With the Generosity Report, we want to bring attention to the need to invest on research and knowledge in Latin America and the Caribbean. We want to show how generous we are and have evidence to prove that, and to foster more research, bringing academics and practitioners together. So the first version of the document is available in the 3 languages. We will always be doing everything at least in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. You'll have access to it. You'll be able to download and read. It will be made available throughout the event. After our event ends, you will all have access to the videos and the documents. You have at least 1 more month, mês mais, to access all of the videos and the content that we are sharing with all of you. Now, we have 7 more minutes before the end of the session, and I'm eager to hear from Inés. So let me introduce her to you. Inés is our leader, our GivingTuesday leader from Guatemala. And she's also the executive director of Pionero Philanthropy, a leading organization in strengthening and accrediting NGOs in Guatemala through data. She has over 10 years of experience in innovation and positioning of social and educational projects. And as I've mentioned, is part of our team, one of our most recent countries with a national leader in Latin America and the Caribbean. Inés, welcome, bienvenida. Muchas gracias por estar acá con nosotros. And the floor is yours.
Thank you, JP. Thank you. So yeah, Latin American Caribbean is generous, and I think we can see it just by the number of people we have on this event. It's beautiful. And hearing everything that Woodrow generously shared with us today, I think that we can see newer generations, on our generations, we're longing for real connection. These connections matter. They matter deeply because we are looking for restoration of trust, dignity, and the sense of belonging. And we can see it as the ways that people are searching for generosity. They are no longer doing it through only monetary donations. We are doing it through volunteering, being there, making a place of our own in this generosity movement. And we know just by logic that the older generations will slowly step back from directly intervening in philanthropy. So we see that the new role developing is for the younger generations. And these generations are going to have this challenge of approaching generosity in a different way. And this is where we can intervene, making generosity be alive with new initiatives that are crucial, reminding us that generosity is not only measured in financial terms. We have to measure it in hours volunteered, the knowledge and skills shared, the voices raised to defend rights and dignity. I believe all of these forms are going to be given accessibility to younger generations who lack wealth, but they don't lack the will to act. There is power in data and evidence to inspire action, because data is going to make the invisible work visible. It's going to transform stories into patterns. It's going to make isolated efforts into collective impact. I have this theory that the psychologist Philip Zimbardo shared, the broken windows theory. I don't know if you guys have heard of it. But he shared that when a broken window was left unattended in a community, it showed signals of neglect, and it can lead to further decay on their community. But when small repairs are made, when care is visible, the opposite happens. Trust grows, order returns, and transformation begins. So we have to work with generosity in the same way. We have to show it. We have to make people be able to see it. And we're not going to be able to have all the people on the ground with us on the projects we make, but we can show it through data. We can show it through the numbers of the impact we're making. So every act, no matter how small, is going to send a signal. It's going to be a donation, a volunteer making an hour of volunteer work, a voice raised, and we're going to be able to show it to people. So just to close this commentary, generosity without borders, to me, means building an ecosystem where these signals multiply, and where small acts accumulate and into a systemic change, not just small changes, but a systemic change. In a region, we won't have to be waiting for grand gestures to begin transformation. We need a million small windows of generosity, these little acts to restore trust, dignity, and belonging. And if we embrace this vision, then Latin America and the Caribbean can create not only a culture of giving, but a culture of renewal. So I really hope this for all of us. So let's all be these little windows of changes.
Thank you, Inés. And in the end, this opening session took a little bit longer than I expected, so you won't have time to take questions, but from the audience. But I've seen people sharing their thoughts, their reflections in the chat, and even people wanting to connect to you, Inés, in Guatemala, and Anita has shared your email. Thank you for your consideration. Woodrow, thank you for being here with us and sharing your views. And well, congratulations, and on behalf of all Latin American and Caribbean, obrigado. Thank you for leading this work that we've been doing within the Data Commons. It's very important to us because it proves to all of us in Latin America and the Caribbean that if we invest on understanding how generous we are, if we invest on finding the data, the evidence that shows and how we behave generously, we can grow and we can strengthen our communities, and we can bring people together to be even yet more generous. So Thank you for inspiring us with Giving Tuesday Data Commons and all the partnership alongside all of these years. And to all of you who are watching, we have 4 minutes before the next sessions. So how things are going to work? Now we have 3 parallel sessions. Feel free to choose your session to enter each one of them. And then we have 2 more plenaries. Amanhã, tomorrow, we will have 2 plenaries and 15 other sessions for you to choose. Sessions in Spanish, in English, or in Portuguese. The plenaries all have simultaneous translation to English or to Spanish or Portuguese. The final plenary tomorrow va ser en español, will be in English, all of the plenary. So we're trying to mix, and most of the sessions actually in Spanish for everybody to feel included as well. Thank you, Woodrow. Thank you, Inés. Thank you all for being with us. Aprovecha, enjoy the event, and I will see you next session. Goodbye. Ciao.
Thanks, JP.
Thank you. Ciao, ciao.